Hey Melody, let's take a look at your week 3 assignment 2 drawing here. The drawing, I feel like we're not using as much marker coverage as we could. A lot of the elements of the table, the legs, the kind of the sides, and even the top to a certain extent doesn't feel like it has as much coverage as it needs to. The top especially, you've got color in place, and it looks to be multiple colors, which is nice to see. But technique-wise, it doesn't feel like you're side to side. If there is a base coat underneath that side to side, it doesn't feel like it's working consistently. And I think a blind could actually work if this is a wood texture, but it doesn't feel like you've cut edges, and there looks to be real either thin strokes or very kind of gappy strokes. And so I think coverage just overall could be a little more consistent, and you could definitely be working with more marker in general. I'm not sure why there's the distinction between kind of very light table legs and the very dark table top. And you have darker table legs in the back, unless it's a lighting kind of thing. But I still think you need to go in with some marker to get this to just feel more, more unified. Perspective-wise, the 1 point feels fine in that it's receding back into space. I do feel like the legs are very long in both cases, and you might want to do a quick measurement. See how long the legs are in comparison to, how wide the table is, and that might give you kind of a good idea of if they're similar in length. If this is just as long as this is, which it actually is here, then you're probably okay. But my guess is that they're not, because it feels like a very tall table and a very narrow one. So that would also be, I think, something to check. The 2 point perspective, to me, doesn't really feel like it's receding in any way. It feels like this is just a rectangle, but not one that is moving back into space or receding as it moves back into space. You also have to, you have to make sure that the legs are receding as well. So if you do have, say, these guys moving towards a specific vanishing point somewhere, the legs would also be doing the same thing. So this front leg, if it's this far down on the front leg, the back leg would actually just be this far down. And then this one as well would be, probably you wouldn't even see it. So you'll have to make sure that you're working the perspective correctly, and this is going to mean having a horizon line, plotting out a vanishing point or two, and actually using those vanishing points to create the sides of the edging of your table so that it recedes properly. The table viewpoint is suggesting that we're kind of on top of it looking down, but the table legs, being able to see so many of them, suggests that we're kind of looking at it from the side. So there's also a little bit of some oddity for me. Coverage, we talked about. I think marker usage, you could get a little bit in here and a little bit in here just to get them to stand out a little bit more. I think you could try and shade some of the legs a little bit, and that could include some marker work. I'd like to see the table legs be a little bit more symmetrical. It's very, very thin here, not so much on this side. And so there's, I think, some just little kind of detail work that needs to be developed a little bit more and definitely refined a little bit more. And I think once you have some marker in place and some shading, the texture can go on top of that, and I think that can probably work well with the mixture of colors that you have in place, but you definitely need to have more marker in place as well.